Okay, yesterday we started learning the dinim of actual davening. The next dinim over here is about saying Kaddish, Baruch Hu, Kedusha, any of these holy things. You need a minyan. Okay, what's the definition of a minyan? 10 male adults over the age of bar mitzvah. Where do we learn out this whole concept of a minyan? Where do we learn out a minyan is 10 people? So the Gemara learns it out by the spies, by the Meraglim. There were 12 spies. And 2 of them came back with good reports, Yeshua and Kalev. 10 of them came back with bad reports. And it says, get her out of this Eidah, and the Torah calls them an Eidah community, and there were 10 bad spies. So from there the Gemara learned out that an Eidah community of a minyan is 10 Jews, 10 male Jews over bar mitzvah. If there's no 10 Jews in the room, you can't say anything of Kedusha. Meaning you can't say Kedusha, Baruch Hu, Kaddish, things that need basically Kriyas HaTorah. You can't do the repetition of the Shemona Esrei of the Amidah. You need to have 10 male adults. Now, there are places where they're desperate with a minyan that they take a kid as the 10th, and the kid holds on to a chumash, and they count him as a minyan for various different things, not for everything, but for various different, some people say for Kriyas HaTorah, some people to do the repetition, some people, the various different things, not everything though. The Rebbe writes, though, in the letter, it's interesting, because the Rebbe brings on that din also in Shulchan Aruch, that you could, Smogan Avram, that says you could take a kid, give him a chumash, and then they count it as number 10. But the Rebbe writes in a letter that he never saw such a thing done. That's what the Rebbe writes in the letter, but the bottom line is a lot of places they have no choice. They do it, otherwise there'll be no minyan, people won't daven, and so the Rebbe is not necessarily speaking in a frum place.
How old should be the kid?
Huh?
How old should be? Maybe just
No, you can't have a month, no. You need to have over 10, 11, a kid that understands everything already. Next question is, in Halachos it says that somebody who is mechalel Shabbos b'farhesia, which means openly, publicly desecrate Shabbos, he doesn't care, he does it in public, in front of 10 people, and he knows about Shabbos and everything, he has a din of a goy. That's the halacha. Mechalel Shabbos b'farhesia, the Gemara says, Shulchan Aruch says, he has a din like a non-Jew, meaning his shechita is not kosher, you can't count him for a minyan, you can't give him an aliyah, you can't do anything because the guy has a din like a goy. Whatever he touches, your wine, it's tray. For me, just take the dinim of a goy. But later poskim, all right, and this originates way back in halacha, there's a difference between mechalel Shabbos b'farhesia or somebody today who doesn't keep Shabbos. And there's a concept in halacha that's called, we learned this in the past, tinik shenishba. Tinik shenishba means, like the Cantonists in Russia. Tinik shenishba means a baby, a tinik, that was captured by goyim, raised as a goy, and all he knows is goyishkeit. He doesn't know anything Jewish, he never learned. So the Gemara says clearly a tinik shenishba, because he never learned about Shabbos, and he doesn't know about Shabbos, he does not have a din of a goy. He has a din of a full-fledged Jew. So a lot of poskim, a lot of poskim, right? And this is what basically the whole world relies on. And that is that today's people that never had a yeshiva background, they never learned all about Shabbos, they never learned about the sanctity of Shabbos, they don't understand about Shabbos completely, they do not have a din of a mechalel Shabbos. They have a din of what's called tinik shenishba. A kid that was captured and raised by goyim, like the Cantonists, and therefore the halacha is you could count him for a binyan, you could give him an aliyah, you could give him, they could be the chazan, they could do, in other words, they don't have a din of a goy. And that's what most shuls in the world, I don't mean the Williamsburg, Borough Park, Bnei Brak guys, but most opinions today in the world rely on that concept of tinik shenishba, therefore they don't have a din of a real mechalel Shabbos, and therefore they could be counted for a minyan. Technically, if one goes through a whole yeshiva system. They go through the whole yeshiva system. And they learned it all, know it all, and then they turn off and become Machal Shabbos. Technically, they would have a din of a guy, but even then, they try to find leniencies to say he really didn't understand what he learned, he didn't feel the Kedusha of Shabbos, he doesn't understand. If he would know it, he wouldn't do it, and therefore they are mekel in that way. Now, what's a gadol? What's an adult? Halachically, an adult is a male 13 years old. Now, what happens if somebody is born in a leap year? Like last year was a leap year. There's 2 Adars. And the guy was born in a regular Adar. A guy was born in a regular Adar. And now the Bar Mitzvah year comes out to be a leap year. Or Bechlal, a guy that's born in a regular Adar, when do you celebrate the birthday? First or second? So the halacha is you celebrate the second month as the real birthday. There's answers from the Rebbe told people to celebrate both months. But halachically, like when does a kid become bar mitzvah? Not in the first month, because he's not the full year yet. He has to wait for the second month. Okay, then he becomes bar mitzvah completely. So based on this, you have a very simple scenario, interesting scenario, that a guy is born later and becomes bar mitzvah before an older guy. What's the case? The case is very simple. A kid was born the 20th of the first Adar. He was born the 20th of the first Adar. So when does he become bar mitzvah? If the bar mitzvah is a regular year, the 20th of Adar. Another kid was born 20 days later on the 10th of Adar Sheni. So the first kid was born the 20th of the first Adar. Second kid was born the 10th of the second Adar. So the first kid is 20 days older than the second kid. Now they become bar mitzvah. There's no leap year. So then you go by the regular Adar. So this kid that was born 20 days later becomes bar mitzvah Yud Adar. And the guy that was born 20th of Adar 20 days earlier becomes bar mitzvah 10 days later on the 20th of Adar. Even though he's 20 days older, nevertheless, bar mitzvah he becomes 10 days later. Which is an interesting scenario. But that's basically what makes a minyan. You have to be 13. Technically, halachically, you need a kid that actually which reaches puberty, which is 2 hairs growing in the private area. But today the halacha is you rely on the chazaka, the established fact that most people at the age of 13 already have what's called the sidus, the simonim, and therefore we rely on a kid who's bar mitzvah that you can count it for a minyan, give him an aliyah, even though you didn't check him out to see if he actually reached puberty or not. Now, next thing is like this. All 10 people need to be in the same room. You can have a guy here and a guy in the building and count them for a minyan. They have to be in the same room. Sometimes you have guys on the porch and the guys inside, they may not be able to count him for a minyan because he's in a separate room. Well, we'll get to those details later. But what's interesting, the Alter Rebbe writes though, that what happens if guys in the men's shul and the guys in the ladies' shul? Not in the second story. I'm saying the one like here. And the mechitza is closed. So the chayri is in a separate room. The Alter Rebbe says no, he's counted for the minyan. Because the mechitza between men and women is not a room separation, it's a gender separation. And therefore, it's halachically, this is all one room. Even when the mechitza is closed in it, it's still one room. This, that the mechitza is not a wall of a separation, a wall of a mechitza, it's a wall of separating the genders, and therefore, it's counted as one room. Okay. Okay. Now, in order to say, we just discussed this the other day. In order to do the repetition, you need 9 answering. Right? You need 9 answering the brachas, otherwise it's too close to be a bracha of Atol, the Rebbe said. But as far as Kaddish and other things, as long as you have 10 people in the room and 6 people davened, then you could say Kaddish even if you don't have all 10 people answering. You see, Kitzur doesn't paskin like that, but the Rebbe paskins like that. That Kaddish and all these things you could say as long as you have 10 people in the room. The repetition of the Shemona Esrei, you need 9 people answering the repetition. Which, by the way, is a problem in a lot of shuls. Sometimes you have a minyan, they're in a rush. I don't know where they're rushing to, but they're in a rush. And there's exactly 10, 11 people in the minyan. Yeah? 10, even 11 people. But you got 3, 4 people still davening the Shemona Esrei. The Chazan cannot repeat the repetition because he doesn't have 9 people answering. They're in the middle of Shemona Esrei. They're not allowed to answer. So therefore, it's a big problem. They're not going to be able to. He cannot repeat the repetition until people finish davening, and they're not going to be talking. They're going to be answering the Shemona Esrei. Then you could do it. Okay. Now, we also discussed, by the way, an interesting thing. What happens, and what we discussed yesterday, yeah? What happens if you have 9 people in the room? You didn't get a minyan. You have 6 people daven Shemona Esrei. 6 people daven Shemona Esrei. And when they finish, the 10th guy comes into the room. So now you have 10. You didn't have it during the quiet Shemona Esrei, you didn't have 10. But now you have 10. And you had 6 people that daven Shemona Esrei. So if you have 9 answering, you could do the repetition of Shemona Esrei because you meet all the criteria. In order to repeat the Shemona Esrei, you need 6 people that davened and 10 people in the room for the repetition. You have it. The 10th guy wasn't there when everybody was davening. There's an Imri Yosef that says it doesn't matter. You can count them and you can do the repetition of Shemona Esrei.
But the repetition does one of the guys that daven. One of the 6.
Yeah, one of the small. Yeah, I mean, how else are you going to do it?
Maybe the guy that just walked in.
Well, technically, by the way, the guy that walked in probably is not by Shemona Esrei.
Sure.
But let's say he would be by Shemona Esrei. Yeah? He can daven for the Yomid. He didn't daven the quiet Shemona Esrei yet. He can daven the Shemona Esrei. But at the end, he says a Lakai Nitzar quietly, because he didn't daven. In other words, let me explain the din. Why does the Chazan repeats the Shemona Esrei? Why does he daven the quiet one? In other words, why is he davening twice? If he's repeating it, so then he shouldn't daven the quiet one. So the Gemara says the reason is l'sader is tefillah, to organize his daven. Don't forget they didn't have sidurim, there were all those things. So it's basically to organize his davening that he should practice before the repetition. Yeah? So that's the minute. That's what you do, even though we have Sidurim, we daven and all that. But it says in Halachos, sometimes if a guy comes in late, you can make him the chazan, because he's davening from his city. He'll do the repetition, like he has a chiyuv, let's say, or yahrzeit or whatever, and he walked in late. By the way, 2 Friday nights ago we did this in show here. Chiyuv walked in late, and the Eilim finished the quiet Shemona Esrei, told him to go over to the Yomid, and he davened, and then he said, "Elokai Nitzar" quietly, because that's what you can do. Okay.